It's good to have you with us at this hour. I'm Daniel Che for Arirang News. Korea's acting Prime Minister has bowed to public pressure and revealed the names of all 24 hospitals affected by Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, or MERS, with 5 deaths, more than 60 confirmed cases, and over 2,300 people under quarantine. Choi Kyung-hwan said the government would do everything it can to contain the virus. Our Connie Kim starts us off.
In the wake of criticism that the government was generating fear by withholding information on the hospitals designated to treat people with Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, acting Prime Minister Choi Kyung-hwan revealed the names of all 24 hospitals affected by the disease.
6 of the hospitals where patients have been diagnosed include Pyeongtaek St. Mary's Hospital and Samsung Medical Center. The other 18 hospitals are places where patients with the disease pass through.
The list of 6 hospitals includes facilities in Seoul, Gyeonggi-do Province, Chungnam, and Daejeon. Choi reassured the public that as all MERS patients are treated in special containment wards, there is no possibility of the infection spreading to the general population. Vowing all-out efforts to combat the viral disease, Choi said the government will ensure better cooperation among regional authorities, the public sector, and the military. Acknowledging that initial monitoring of suspected cases where people were quarantined at home wasn't carried out effectively, the acting Prime Minister also announced plans to match suspected patients with public servants from their respective region on a one-to-one basis, strengthening monitoring of people under quarantine. Authorities may also begin tracking the mobile phones of people under quarantine. Following the press briefing, the Health Ministry and 4 local governments announced plans to create a practical advisory group. Also, local governments, including Seoul and Gyeonggi-do Province, have been given permission to confirm MERS cases, whereas before only the Korea Centers for Disease Control and Prevention was authorized to do so. Korea's MERS alert level is at the 3rd highest, and there are no immediate plans to upgrade it. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
The outbreak has brought 2 usual rivals together in the political realm. Korea's rival parties have vowed to work together to contain the spread of the MERS virus. At a meeting on the government's response to the outbreak, the ruling Saenuri Party and the main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy agreed to establish a special bipartisan parliamentary committee to combat the viral disease. Both parties call for the creation of a body that includes representatives from local governments, education offices, and the general public. The lawmakers also agreed to swiftly pass bills this month related to strengthening quarantine measures for the disease and also improving disease response manuals. But meanwhile, the rival parties will join forces again in grilling Health Minister Moon Young-pyo over the government's lax response to the MERS outbreak when this month's National Assembly session gets underway on Monday. But after that, it's back to normal. The 2 sides are likely to clash again over a revised law giving lawmakers the power to demand changes to presidential and other government ordinances. The president strongly opposes the revised law and seems willing to veto it. A ruling Saenuri Party says it's willing to work with the presidential office to work out the kinks and revise the law again, while the main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy refuses to make any changes. The parties had been expected to focus on the confirmation hearing for Prime Minister nominee Hwang Kyo-won, but that's expected to take a backseat to the other matters on the agenda. The MERS outbreak has sparked fresh worries over the slow-growing economy, with analysts moving to downgrade their outlooks for this year. Some experts are even calling for an injection of cash to prop up growth. Shin Se-min tells us more on the influence of MERS on the economy.
The MERS outbreak is starting to tug on economic growth, raising concerns that it will further dent Korea's already sluggish domestic demand, potentially pushing growth into the 2% range. While Finance Minister Choi Kyung-hwan has released projections for growth of just over 3%, multiple financial organizations have already lowered their outlooks. Foreign investment bank Nomura revised down its projection to 2.5% from its earlier prediction of 3%. International Monetary Fund says 3.1%. The Korea Development Institute and the OECD both downgraded their outlooks to 3%, and the Bank of Korea says that it expects 3.1% growth this year. If the MERS outbreak continues to spread, economists believe that the domestic economy, already hit hard by falling exports, will suffer even more. Korea's tourism and retail industry has already been hit hard by the spread of the virus, as over 20,000 foreigners have canceled trips to the country. Experts say that the government should set aside extra funds to revitalize the domestic economy and that the central bank must consider another rate cut to prop up sentiment. The finance minister says, however, the government has no plans to create a supplementary budget to help contain the virus, nor does he think this is the time to talk about extra funds. The Bank of Korea says it is closely monitoring the economy and taking a number of issues into account, including household debt and the MERS outbreak, ahead of its monthly policy meeting this Thursday. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, more Korean companies are upping their capital expenditures this year despite the weak economic growth. A survey by the Korea Development Bank on 2,500 manufacturing and service firms shows that the companies are planning to invest over $140 billion on new facilities and equipment this year, up 15% from what they spent last year. Large companies expressed a strong desire to spend more on capital expenditures, with an increase of over 16% expected this year. Spending by small and mid-sized firms is expected to drop 11%, larger than last year's 6%. Moving on to North Korea's nuclear ambitions, the regime may have another nuclear complex in addition to the one in Yongbyon. That's according to a report by the U.S. State Department, which said it is likely the regime may have been operating a secret nuclear facility. If true, it would deliver another blow to efforts to denuclearize the regime via the six-party talks involving the U.S., North and South Korea, China, Japan, and Russia, as efforts have been focused mainly on the existing Yongbyon nuclear complex. North Korea has been drifting further and further away from its denuclearization commitment since June 2008, when it destroyed a water cooling tower at the Yongbyon facility, which was seen as a powerful gesture of its commitment to ending its nuclear activities. Food commodity prices dropped in May, hitting a 6-year low amid a favorable outlook for this year's harvests. The UN's Food and Agriculture Organization says the food price index averaged 166 points last month, as the prices of cereals, dairy, and meat all dipped in the month of May. That's down 20% from a year earlier and the lowest level since September 2009. The organization predicts that the global rice output will surge by over 1% from last year, largely driven by production in Asia. The FAO also upgraded its predictions for the global production of wheat, coarse grains, and rice based on better harvests of maize in China and Mexico and wheat in Africa and North America. The food price index tracks prices on international markets of 5 food commodity groups: cereals, meat, dairy products, vegetable oils, and sugar. Search and rescue operations continue on Malaysia's Mount Kinabalu, where dozens of climbers stranded after an earthquake were brought to safety on Sunday. The 5.9 magnitude quake that struck early on Friday is the worst in Malaysia's history. According to DPA News, at least 18 people are dead and 1 person still missing. Authorities have yet to identify the bodies, aside from 6 elementary school students and their teacher from Singapore. According to the South Korean Embassy in Malaysia, a Korean couple in their 50s was among the 137 rescued from the mountaintop. The quake, which occurred within Kinabalu Park, caused extensive damage within Ranao and Kundasang and even broke Mount Kinabalu's distinctive Donkey's Ear Peak. 4 aftershocks occurred in Sabah, but no damage has been reported so far. Science fiction becomes science fact. Robots are starting to work in environments that are inaccessible to humans, in outer space or in deep water, conditions where the machines are also susceptible to damage. That's all thanks to researchers who have created a new algorithm that allows robots to automatically adapt to and compensate for such problems. Our Park Se-young has this story.
When this robot breaks a leg, it's not out of commission. It's up and walking again in 40 seconds thanks to a new intelligent trial and error algorithm. It was created by French and American computer scientists who wanted robots to be able to adapt to and recover from damages just like humans and animals. So when the six-legged robot loses a leg, it runs through its library of nearly 13,000 walking patterns, thousands of which only use 5 legs. The patterns are calculated in advance using a computer model, which shortens the trial and error process for the robot itself. Researchers also tested the algorithm on a robotic arm. Until now, the only way for a robot to become adaptable was the installation of expensive self-diagnosis sensors, whereas the algorithm is much more cost-effective. The team says its research, published in the journal Nature, could work for any kind of movement. That means robots will be better able to perform tasks in treacherous conditions, from nuclear accidents to earthquakes. Park Se-young, Arirang News.
And now for a quick look at the weather. Scorching hot conditions continue on Monday here in Korea. The mercury could rise all the way up to 27 in Seoul with partly cloudy skies. But you'll want to carry an umbrella with you if you're in Daejeon, Daegu, Jeonju, Gwangju, Busan, or Jeju. There's a 36% chance of rain in the forecast on Monday evening. And now let's check out the weather conditions outside of Korea around the world. That's all we have for you now. Thank you for watching. Do have a great start to your new week.